Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Last of Us Season 1 review. This is Episode 2. I am the clicker boom, Trask now, and I'm joined by...
I am the bomb, Kirklin Patzer.
I am not the quiet, but the silent Dylan Muss.
I am the click Taylor Field.
That's exactly how they sound. Not the scary sound. Imagine you should replace all their sounds with that click. Yeah. No, I didn't have it ready. I should have had that. Because funny enough, when we played that Saliva song last week, click, boom, boom, didn't get flagged at all. Nobody. Oh wait, no,
Nice.
Did we get flagged?
We got flagged.
Yeah,
You messaged
right.
us the next day.
What was that fake out
sorry.
about? Oh yeah, we didn't get.
There was
flagged.
something.
A second later.
There was something.
The big reveal.
Yeah, there's something last week that we played, and I thought we'd get flagged for sure. But yeah, Saliva, the fucking has been relevant since 2000. Like, oh, we're gonna flag that video and stuff. And know what I did? I just edited it out. YouTube. I didn't even leave it in there. Like, oh, sorry, Saliva, you can just go away. So I just took out the clip. But podcast listeners, you got it. So yeah, we are here. We're here weekly for the next 7 more weeks. I keep forgetting. I think we told us it's 9 episodes, right? So we got this and 7 more weeks of Last of Us. We'll be here every week. Sometimes going live relatively after the episode goes live, or after the episode's ended. But then if not, if you're asleep, you want to go to bed, you're not going to catch it live. You got NFL playoffs, you got other things. You're bowling, perhaps. Well, and get it in the podcast feeds the next day. Today, where can they find all those podcast feeds for Last of Us? Or, Dylan's talking about Fire Emblem this week. Or we got the Golden Geeks happening this week. Or Weekly Geek. There's Weekly Geek. There's Trash Totally. I feel like there's something else I forget.
Just
But
a regular
there's
newscast in there too,
yeah.
right?
I guess it's just I guess it's because I got the Oscar nominations Tuesday, so I'm excited that. But then also just like this DC stuff, but we don't have a day, so I can't really like promote it. I don't know, like same thing that'll be at some point. I'm guarantee it's gonna happen on a day where we're not planning to cast, a day where it's like nothing's scheduled, But Taylor, where can they find it all?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find that with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerseCast is our Twitter. GeekVerse is our Facebook.
Everything you need to know is down below. The video, the audio feeds, our social medias, our Discord, where us and other listeners are in there. The link to our podcast network, link to all our separate feeds, and a link to Patreon. Where we get ad-free, exclusive early episodes. Right now, you can get over 13 hours of exclusive and early content now that we've added After 9 on there. So lots of stuff. And then in just a couple weeks, we'll be doing another Mass Record Day. We're going to be doing another X-Men episode, John Wick 3, and Evil Dead 1. So we got a lot of fun things coming your way. So make sure you head over there, support us, because everything you put back into that comes back, or other way around. Everything you put in that comes back to the show. More shows, more hours, more exclusive stuff like that. And a big thank you to the Patreon producers, Aaron Braden, April Darkness, and Joshua Wright. And thank you to everyone that supports us on however manner you do. So who wants to take it first? Who wants to take the non-spoiler thoughts on episode 2?
Any takers? I'll go here.
We're done.
I thought this was a pretty good episode 2. Oh my gosh, pardon me. Maybe I shouldn't have gone first. But I thought it was a good just follow up from episode 1. Not quite to the peak that episode took me on, but I thought it did a good job of just building upon the intensity of like the threat of the world that they're dealing with, as well as give us some character bonding time. So that was all good. But I think for me, the early parts of this episode kind of was slogging along a little bit. Like I wasn't able to fully get into it till, I don't know, maybe 2/3 into the episode or whatnot. But by the end of it, I definitely was satisfied with how much it ramped up. But yeah, overall, I thought it was an okay episode 2. Like if I got this later on in the season, I might have been a little bit more bummed. But the fact that it is just episode 2 here, it's not all bad. It was just, I think the pace in the beginning was a little bit slower than I was wanting it to be. But in hindsight, I think it was appropriate. Like just for, I don't know, moving the story along, just filling us in on what's going on in the world and kind of I forget the name of like the overall threat. It's some sort of like fungus or something. Travis,
Cordyceps. The cordyceps virus, yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. But so
I probably wouldn't pronounce the word. So good thing Taylor covered right there. Yeah.
Dylan covered too, Dylan.
There you go.
The yin to my yang, Dylan.
By a frame, you had it on me, Taylor. So it's all yours.
So yeah, I thought it was an all right episode 2. Excited to unpack some things here, but yeah.
I'll jump in right on that because I feel like my favorite section of the episode was the kind of quieter moments when it's just the 3 characters trucking along, walking through this just beautiful sets. Like just the way they've done, like CGI in the backgrounds and then creating however much of the set they are creating. You can't tell where that gap is of like what's real and what's, computer generated in the background. And I don't know, just walking around that world, I was just totally digging it. Just so beautiful and traumatic and devastating at the same time. And just, yeah, great writing and great acting, and like sprinkling in a little bit of world building, sprinkling in a little bit of backstory. Like, oh, Ellie can't swim. I guarantee that's going to come up in like 3 episodes when they're in some water and she can't swim. Just little things like that. So yeah, I'm loving it. I think for me, the one thing was like, I always love when a season of TV like maybe does that longer first episode or last episode, but then when you set the precedent with the first episode, then I just want these longer episodes, because I found by the end of this episode, I was like, oh, I just immediately want to go into the next one, which is exactly how you want to feel in one way. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I have like a couple minor little gripes, but I think for me this was just like even stronger than the first episode for some reason. I guess just now that we're on the adventure, on the journey, I'm just really liking the sets and just this world that we're cruising through. So yeah, I don't feel like there's actually a ton of things that I even really need to break down with it. So we'll see how the spoiler section goes. But I don't know. It's just really solid, and it's pretty exciting for me to finally feel like I can get into this world after all these years. So I'm digging it.
Taylor.
I love this episode. Oh my goodness. Like this just feels so good now to be back with the Sunday show, and we got The Last of Us. And
Sunday show.
Man, when I look
I
at
agree
that,
with you, Taylor. I like the Sunday show vibes.
it's so good. It's so good.
I like the 6 p.m. release time. I'd take a Tuesday show, Wednesday show if Disney was releasing them at 9 or 6 p.m. I don't care what day of the week it was.
I would too. I agree with that. But yeah, this episode was fantastic. I don't know if I like it more than the first one, because like you said, Dylan, that's interesting, and I might have to think on that, because I could see it kind of elevating to favorite status over that first episode. And this, especially too, because like that first one, like you said, Travis, that was like an hour half plus, and this one they cut down the time down to less than an hour. And yeah, I wanted more. I feel like we got a few different dynamics that were shown in this episode that I just want to explore each different notion and just get to learn a lot more. I have questions, because at this point in the game,
I have questions.
I feel like, okay, now I'm starting to think that they've started to change things and maybe kind of like are running with things that are separate from the game at this point in time, but we'll talk about that in spoilers. I think I've gotten to a point now where I don't know the tie-ins. I'm in the unknown, yeah. So I'm fucked, but it's okay because I'm liking it.
It's gonna be fucked every once in a while.
We're fucked.
Yeah. Another good episode. I agree. I'm not the same, but I agree with Dylan, where it's like that's always the tough thing when things are made so well. It's like lots of times, okay, well, we always talk about the easiest reviews are the ones where we have lots of problems, because okay, I got a list of things to break down, we go back and forth, but as you can see, it's going pretty well. I feel like just the majority of it's funny how quickly it's caught on. Like Emily's talking about, like people at work are watching. There's people that have never played a video game, like don't even own video games and stuff, and it's just funny how one, it seems like it's catching on a lot of quick, very like a fungus or something like that, but two, it just seems like overall praise is pretty good. I feel like there's always like a minor thing there, so I think the show's doing well. Obviously last week, because we didn't talk about all the news, like last week it had that I think it was the biggest debut for HBO since 2010, which is pretty good, 13 years. So for a new series, of course, not like everything, but for a completely new series, it's pretty good. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I think this episode served as the function as far as, obviously last week, and spoilers for last week, there was the infection and everything went down, and you got plane crash and stuff like that. But then after that, it was like a lot of just world building and setup, right? I feel like this was to hook people in of like, okay, we're going to give you some intense moments, and we're going to show you off a little bit of like the creatures and things you can be afraid of and stuff. I think that's really smart, because game-wise, actually, I feel like the pacing is pretty on par so far, but you could have got more. And I agree with Dylan. I think the best parts are the quiet ones, but I think for that general audience, people that are new to this, you want to have that kind of what I think the middle portion on, where is trying to get that intensity up. So I think that was smart. I think that was really well done. There's some really cool things that are happening from the game that are translated over here that I like. There's some things that aren't in the game or they've changed up. Like we'll talk about the very beginning. I'm interested to see what we're doing with that. But yeah, so far I got nothing, if we're, obviously we don't rate episodes, but if we're on that thumb scale, like I'm in the, I 2 thumbs weird, because like I'm not like, oh my god, but it's like I don't really have any major thing where I'm like, this really took me out of it. Like there's only a couple of like, oh, I liked maybe how they did this better in the game, but it's not even like this was so bad. It's just like, okay, that's different and stuff like that. So yeah, anything else non-spoiler before we get into this?
No, let's do it.
There you go. Well, there you go. So we're getting into spoilers. If you've not seen the episode, come back later and we'll be here. And if not, we'll take an ad break right now. Take a break. What the fuck did I just say?
Take a break.
Everybody take a break.
Everyone take a break.
We'll be back
It's
in 10
Sunday.
minutes,
It's
guys.
Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're back. We're back. Where do we want to start? Superman Mike said it felt like a controller in my hand watching a show so close to the game. I love it. Yeah, and that's what I love about this is I do enjoy playing playing games, but I don't always have the time. So before, and I've actually done this before, where I just watched the cutscene movie The Last of Us, but this will probably kind of replace that in the future as far as if I need my Last of Us fix. It's nice just to put on because you have the cutscene, but then you got like, okay, you're watching the gameplay again sometimes. But yeah, where do we want to start? The beginning, middle?
Well,
end?
I'm assuming that the Jakarta flashback is not something that's in the game,
No,
Travis?
no.
So there you go. There's something that's new,
Yeah.
I guess. And yeah, I'm curious what you guys think about that because that's now we're on 2 episodes in a row now that have, I guess, I mean, even the first episode, you'd still call that a flashback, even though that was technically where the timeline started, I guess you could say. But and there's already 3 time jumps in the first episode, but still, I wonder if they're gonna follow up with that structure at all. And then, yeah, just going from that, like, how much of this do you think we're going to see? Just more setup of the world before anything? Because I would have felt like after last episode, we got everything we needed, but then they did this. So now I'm curious how much more they're going to do with that, whether that's like they're trying to get more screen time and they don't feel like the game, that just following one-to-one in the game is enough, or they're just trying to do more of that world building. But, yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so with the Jakarta thing, that was something that I don't know. I felt it went on a little bit too long for myself. Like it's good to fill in like the origin of just how they were discovering this fungus like infecting people, and like when they're actually doing the autopsy, I thought that was interesting, just the way that she was cutting into it, and it's just like, what is she gonna find? And then when you have like the little tendrils coming out of the mouth, like that was really creepy. But the whole like sequence of the cops like going to get her and then like the slow drive in, I don't know. It seemed like we were, I don't know, just filling in some space there for me. And like that's where I was saying, like the early portions, that's just where I wasn't really loving it. But I did like how it was, you know, like just this is where they're discovering it. I kind of dipped again when she was talking with the officer there, and she just immediately was like, there is no vaccine, there's no cure, we're going to bomb everyone. It was just
Bomb
like, okay.
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go home with my family, just start the bombing. And it was just like, okay, this is a little bit eye-rolly for me, but yeah, that, like, and again, like as the episode went on, it got better for sure. But just to start the episode that way, for me, I didn't think it was the best. But maybe
I'll
I'm
go
wrong.
because I guarantee you this is shit that Taylor loves, and he's like, I'll take a whole movie of The Last of Us prequel. Yes, he's already smiling for the listeners. But I'm not as harsh as Kirklin. I'm somewhere in the middle of. It's thing where I like it. It's well done, but it's just like I don't know if it's needed. I don't know if I need much more. And this is a big thing because like I bring something from the game, like. To me, the defining the cure was always like the Ellie storyline. They didn't talk much about the past, and even Joel, like when he said, "Oh, lots of people say this and that," and he says variations of that in the game. But I feel like I don't know if it adds anything. It's not bad. I think the scenes are well done. I think the autopsy is cool and stuff like that. I think it's all acted well, and I like the dread it brings. But I thought like last week like nailed it home enough of what it's going to be. And I guess how it alludes to is, well, there's never going to be no vaccine, right? And then they find this girl that for some reason is immune. So I get what they're doing there of this high scientist is saying there's no cure and somehow a cure has happened. So it's like a miracle, right? So I get that. But I think I could still understand that if it's like they've been in this shit for 20 years and they've found no one like this, and if this girl gets bit, she's fine. I think I get that already without the doctor saying they'll never find something. So and I also think it's kind of almost a way of, because I had this debate with someone where I don't think they're going to change much from the game, the big story beats. I think they're going to do things like this where let's add to a little bit, or like when we get to test, there's like specifics about the scene that are changed, but the result's still the same. So maybe it's just that to kind of set itself a little bit different. Again, I forgot to mention, this was Neil Druckmann. He directed this episode. I was surprised it was episode 2. So, again, he's one of the creators that he's adding these things in. So, it's almost like he's adding things like DLC to the game, but through the show. Like, this is stuff he would have put in the game, but you can't necessarily play through this cutscene, right? You can't play through, like, I guess you could just watch it, but I think in a
drive to the diner.
Yeah, right.
Escort this lady into your car.
And maybe that's something that he even tinkered with at the time. That this wouldn't be a great sequence, but in a movie or show, we could add that because you're just watching it, you know. So I'm not a negative, but I think Dylan, you posed a good question. I'm wondering, for some reason I get a vibe. I think we might get this every episode, maybe like barring the finale. I could see them doing something, and I don't know if I necessarily need that, but I'll kind of judge it once we're done, I guess. So yeah. But Taylor, you're loving all this stuff.
Have we seen this type of origin stuff done many a time before? Yes. I like to prescribe to the storyline of we're like in the shit and it's already happening. That's kind of like what I enjoy, but because probably for the most part, when we get the opening stuff where it's like the quiet and the calm of just everything is about to go sideways, it just really, it's like the Order 66 for me. Well, I do enjoy it. It's just, again, like it really is so heavy to just watch and take in. So when we got it again here, and we got it in a different part of the world and a different aesthetic to it, I liked it because again, it had that mystery. So we got like 14 people missing. Someone got bit. We don't know who bit the girl who just started tweaking out at the factory. Like it set this very scary precedence. I love the doctor. It was Dr. Professor of mycology, I think it was. Yeah, she's just like her hands are shaking as she puts the tea down and just tells this guy like, yeah, we got to bomb it. And I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I mean, if you're a scientist and you know everything about a zombie virus, I mean, if that's what's got to be, then fuck, that's pretty serious.
That was something that just bothered me so much. Like, again, Taylor, I'm not a scientist as well, but I feel like the scientific method is just like collaboration with like other scientists.
Oh, no,
it's just like no. It's like no, it ends with her. Like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
talk to any of my colleagues. Like we're just bombing everything right now.
Don't inform
and
any
I'm just
other
gonna-
countries either.
But I'm
We're
not
just gonna
helping
start
you
bombing.
further. I'm just going with my family. So just don't call me again. But just start the bombing. Like it was kind of weird, and it just I don't know. It seemed like we don't want to spend too much time like making the decision on like do we bomb?
Yeah.
Do we
You don't
not?
have the extra 10
And
minutes.
We have
yeah.
some sequence where she goes to like the UN and with like all these other scientists, and they all talk
Drive
about
to
they're
the
like,
UN.
You know what?
Convince-
The bombs are sounding pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Guys, let's do that.
So like Travis said, like I don't think it's like boosting anything, but like I won't say that the acting's bad. I won't say like the overall
Yeah.
performance of those scenes is bad. Like it definitely was really, really good. Like Taylor said, like the actor that was playing the doctor, just shaking, and like her body language, like she was totally selling the threat of what was going on. Like Dylan mentioned, the overall dread that's just going on with this new threat on humankind and everyone. I definitely felt that, but just I don't know. I don't know what it was. I was just bummed.
The part about that I kind of enjoyed was just the writing of it's like, okay, it started out with like, you know, some guy got bit, and then there was like this, well, who bit that person? And then some other person bit, and then eventually it was like, yeah, and there's like 14 people right now that we know of that are out there, and then like I just love how just
14.
within this one scene he's trying to hold back on this information, and just like with each line that she's bringing out, it's just not what he wants to hear. Everything he's hoping she says is the exact opposite. So I kind of just like that the way it progressed and the way they were kind of just slowly divulging information to each other. But I think you guys are right. It is, I guess for me, at the end of the day, like it's like a 5-minute scene. If they had spent a half an hour on this flashback, I think I would be coming in here with a lot of different thoughts. But for me, it was like just a little teaser, a little explainer, a little exposition that was like they could have done this in a couple lines of dialogue, like whatever Joel could be talking about this or something. But I kind of preferred getting this little sequence and seeing this different place and all that stuff. So, and yeah, they kind of set up some of this stuff in the first episode too, where Sarah is the name of his daughter, right? She's talking about like they can't find Jakarta on a map and all this stuff. So they're talking about Jakarta in the first episode. And then I like heard this crackpot theory, or what I thought was a crackpot theory from the first episode. The people were talking about how it's like something to do with grain or like bread.
Yeah, I
is
heard
like
about
how
grain. Yeah.
how this thing is going around.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, sure, whatever it is. And then like just somehow in that first episode, there's like multiple times when Joel could have like had some sort of grain, but then he didn't for whatever reason. There was like they didn't have the stuff to make the pancakes, or at the neighbor's house, like she gave the cupcakes, whatever, to the neighbor, whatever it was, and then the neighbor is the one that, you know, got infected and all this stuff. So it seems like there's a lot. I actually want to go back and watch the first episode and just pay attention to that now that they kind of filled in that line. But it's showing that there's like there's a lot of meaning behind like someone declining pancakes is somehow leading to like some plot point that's going to come up later. So it's pretty cool.
I think, just to jump on that, scientist lady again. I think if they were to swap those lines with the military guy, that would have worked a little bit better for me, because when you look at the military, I feel like the military is always the group pushing quarantine and containment first. We can't let this get outbreak and everything, so we're going to bomb. But just for her to be a civilian, a scientific civilian, just to put that statement out, it definitely is a little bit off-putting. And yeah.
See, I guess it's still like work. I think you could have had a little more of it, but I guess that's why it worked for me there. As far as it's this scientist, and that's how bad it is. That they see that there's going to be no resolution whatsoever. Now, again, it is kind of a stretch because I feel like obviously there's stuff like cancer we haven't got a resolution to and things like that. But there's just like even when AIDS started, right at that point, it was this pandemic that killed a bunch of people and stuff like that. But now people can comfortably live and have medicine and stuff like that, right? And like I don't think anyone thought like, let's just like bombs away or something. And that's different because they're not turning into like these like things. So I guess that's what they're trying to go for. So I guess that worked for me is, they've seen, as a scientist, you've probably seen a bunch of bad things, and this is the one that's just so bad. But at least now I have another reason not to eat grain, because I try to stay away from grain in general for my diet. But now,
well, what if then you're dealing with this thing that, it turns them into monsters, that kind of stuff. But the big kicker here is that the time it takes to get like a vaccine, it would be months and months and months, all that stuff. That same time, you could probably see 2 billion people get infected with this thing, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So I think that's the other factor too that she's taken into consideration. There's no way to fast track anything for this. So
and that's what they said. It's funny because they said like also her idea is to bomb it, so then it kind of stops there, but it doesn't. Tess mentions that like she talks about the bombings and that I like that she's like it worked here. Like I know it did because like there's some people still alive. It's just funny like this is the version of worked. Like the life and like there's still a bunch of monsters and clickers around and stuff like that. So I guess there's not many, which I don't know because in the games they stick with this area. So I know they're doing that multiplayer game. I don't know if that's going to be in another country or something like that. And I think that is one thing to establish because like Emily had thought so, but like at least it kind of clarifies, this is like a worldwide thing. I don't think it would not be a worldwide thing when you look at the state, but it's not like, in Japan, they're just living cool while the rest of the world's gone. Like it shows that,
I saw people talking about that, like where it looks like like the Western continent is completely fucked, but then like there's maps people find in games with like key points in like the UK and Europe, and it's portrayed as maybe it's not necessarily as bad over there.
I think it's not as bad, but I think some shit went down. I don't think there's like the UK is perfectly fine. I think it's just that they maybe have figured it out a lot better and stuff, but I'm not sure what they're going to do.
There's got to be a couple islands out there that are just untouched, just living their best life. Have no idea what the world.
They got the good grain out there.
They got the good grain, yeah.
But that was night one. They just burned everything grain. Like they're just having bonfires. Just get rid of it all, Just fruit and veggies. That's it. What was I gonna say? What about Espo's theory here? Is I think each episode of Flashback will get closer and closer to a total outbreak in 2003. I could see that a little step forward, everything like that. So I could see that.
I don't feel like they would, have much to flash back to, like after the shit hit the fan. I feel like that's showing what they showed in the first episode. Like that's good enough there.
That's one of the flashbacks. When we meet Tommy, he's like, that night, and then they just play the whole sequence from his point of view. Though it's like fuck. And then like you brought up, might have been better served a flashback pre-outbreak to Tess. The only reason I push back on that is I feel like if you were a non-game viewer, you might be like, she's gonna eat it this episode, because I feel like you might get an inkling. You might get an inkling like, why is she getting a highlight? I would almost like that next week and almost have it like a way that Joel was like remembering something she told about her, but I don't know what there is to tell, because obviously that's not in the game either. So so.
Yeah, one full episode. In jail.
Yeah. Everything's going crazy out there, and he's just in jail, like trying to like, can I get help?
Talking
please?
with like a drunk guy in the drunk tank.
If they continue going with this flashback thing at the start of the episodes, I guess I hope they keep it pretty short. Yeah. I also said like I don't feel like this episode needed one, but I enjoyed what we got, so I would say they could surprise me there, and I am down for some more backstory, but at the same time, I like almost don't want the screen time taken away from just like this main story at this point. But yeah, I don't think going back to Tess, a character who's gone now, is gonna would really be worth the screen time in that way. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if they could do more flashbacks with Sarah or something, but like, why would you? Let's focus on the characters that we're working with here. So,
Well. I guess we can talk about the museum first because it's about tests, but we can get there. So museum, there's a lot of walking and stuff like that. I will say, to not brush past the scene, but I think my favorite scene this episode was when, like, classic. I love the video game tropes where there's like this wall with a bunch of like a bunch of tables and everything, and they're just like, I'll go find a path, and then it's like, oh, character development time for Ellie and Joel and stuff like that. But I like when they just sat there and they just talked about Boston. I like that he's very reluctant to share any information because he doesn't know where she's going. He doesn't know what people are going to be talking to her, so he doesn't want to give anything up. Which, what is there really to give up, Joel? But like, I get it, right? Like he's just
on edge.
he's guarded and stuff like that. But she's learning more about like, okay, he's killed a bunch of people, but he's not like a monster. Because she said, oh, you ever feel bad? Like, oh, sometimes. So I like both of them. Like, you kind of are starting to see some of the bonding happening. So I liked all that personal stuff in the museum, and I think those two have good chemistry as far as like they're still a bit more like shitty towards each other. Like I love that part when she's like, oh, I gotta pee, and she's like, is there anything bad in here? Like, just you. And she's like, oh, funny. Like the back and forth is just like, it just feels completely like the video game. But I liked those quiet moments that you were talking about earlier, Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like those sequences could, like some of that writing there could feel cheesy if it was worse actors performing these lines. But since it is so good, like I'm just totally believing this dynamic and who these characters are, and I like that they're all just like throwing shade at each other as much as they can. So I'm just loving that dynamic, and yeah, that hotel scene, very video gamey. A small character goes through a hole to open a door. You know, I did that many times in Plague Tale in the last few months here, Kirklin. I'm sure you remember doing that a lot. Very video gamey thing, but yeah, I do like a lot of that dialogue we're getting there. And then, yeah, when they get up to the roof of that place and they're looking down at all those, I guess just the infected is what they call them, right? Yeah, just the infected. I really liked that. It kind of just gives you the heebie-jeebies, right? Seeing them from far away and like. At first, it just looks like nothing's moving, but then when you like really zoom in and look at it, and like just little legs moving around, arms moving around, and then the sun's going, and they're all wriggling around. It's very gross and very disturbing, and obviously a surprise to them too, because they're like, "Well, last time these guys were all inside, and now they're spilling onto the streets. Look at that."
Well, and I like too how like only 10 minutes ago I was like, "Oh, it's not really that bad out here. You know, there's not much going on," and then right later they get to that, and obviously the clicker. So obviously it's a bit of clear foreshadowing of okay, it's not going to go down easily and stuff. But yeah, and that feels again very video gamey. Like when you're just walking, you don't have to stop and look at something, but you look at it and you're just like, man, this is messed up, and then you got to continue on with your trek. You know,
that first howl roar you hear when they're on the bridge, that one, I feel like it sets the tone for what's to come. It was very unnerving. When Ellie is walking there and talking to Tess and Joel. Now she's talking about the different types of these clickers. Those are all types in the games, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah. I think she's talking about the different effect. I think she only like when she was mentioning the ones that make sense have like the. I don't know. I should describe like a bat, but I guess like the wings, like the open face. Those are just specifically the clickers. There's like bigger, like of course morphed clickers and everything like that.
Shoot like the spore things that she's talking about.
Yeah, but apparently that's not in this season. That they've taken that out. They said it's not impossible for season 2, but they just didn't do it. I think the reason is there's many times in the games where you go through spore areas and the character's just throwing gas masks. I think they're like, we're not paying Pedro Pascal to put on a gas mask for half this series. So I think that's why they said they just replace it with fungi. And like the thing that's new to this is that whole hive mind thing. That's not in the game. The whole connecting and don't step on anything. Don't make it. Don't make a sound, of course, because the clickers. But the whole one thing's connecting to each other, wake each other. That's new. So they kind of swapped them, I think, for something. And I don't mind the hive mind thing. It's alright. I like the visuals of when he landed on it and then just started to like go like at the end of the episode, like, going to his nails and like just send this ripple. So I like that. So those are the type of changes I think they're going to be making to the game and stuff like, okay, this works better for actors and actresses and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I
swore Taylor was going to say something.
I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something, but completely lost.
The eyes.
Because you said she's talking about the different clickers and stuff, and I answered.
You went on, and I thought, well, I lost what I was going to say after that. Go ahead, Kirkland.
Yeah, like the whole hotel sequence, that was something that I at least got to in the video game, so it was cool to see just how similar that looked to actually like trekking through it in the video game. Yeah, when they see the water and she's like, I can't swim, and then you have just Pedro, or I guess Joel, just it's like really takes a step, and then just the one line that she draw, and like the delivery is so perfect too. It's like, well, how was I supposed to know that? Like she's kind of talking to herself, but loud enough for everyone to hear. But I'm definitely growing to like Ellie a lot more from this episode versus the last one. I think it's also just her bouncing off of Pedro, and like you mentioned, Dylan, like they're really great actors that they can just like bounce off, and as you said, like the cheesy lines, they don't seem cheesy, like they seem very believable, and I really feel like they are kind of bonding, but still just really getting on each other's nerves, and I just want more of this throughout the entire series. So that's great to see. And yeah, it's funny because in episode 1 we had a very similar thing where like the debris was there and Tommy's like, I'll meet you at the river. And then here we are, just another obstacle, and it's like it's so video gamey that it could be cheesy, but like it's not, because it gives us this time that these two characters can bond and just we can sit down with them and learn a little bit more of them. So
even when they get through the museum and it's like to set up so like clickers can get them, like there was no sounds, but then randomly the roof just like collapses in one of those rooms, and it's very video game where it's like, okay, you're not allowed to go back there anymore. And so it's like, oh, okay, like, and I knew the clickers were coming up, but it's just really like, okay, I
Your
guess
game has
sense.
auto saved.
Yeah, that's
you
what
see
it
the
felt
little
like.
wheel in the top corner.
Yeah, especially when Neil directed, like, okay, you don't want these guys to escape the clicker room. I get it, like they got to run around in circles. So that there's a couple moments, but I don't mind, like you're saying, I don't mind them so far. There's not been one, like even the Tommy one, I think that was the most egregious last week. But again, I can still mind kind of like, well, the cars might explode if you step on them, like gas and stuff. So I get it. So I'm having some fun with it,
I really like that. Well, I didn't realize this was an addition. I would have assumed this was from the game where like stepping on one of these like spore things can spread it underground, and I really like that. I think it's really interesting and dynamic. I guess I'm a little surprised that we already saw it in action. I thought they would set that up here and then like a couple episodes down the line that would come up again. But yeah, we're already by the end of this episode, we've seen that in effect. But I really liked that, and they had just like the camera really zoomed in, and you're seeing like almost like little worms of the fungi, and then they kind of like zoom down and then zoom up, and you're kind of in a new place as the rest of the infected wake up and run towards them. That's just such a terrifying thought in this world where there is no order whatsoever. There's like nature has taken over, everything is broken, smashed stuff everywhere. There isn't just like an empty sidewalk. The fact that any step could immediately summon potentially hundreds of these things that are, in this case, 1 minute away. I love that. I think that's just such a impending danger that is absolutely terrifying. And I don't know how that would work in a game sense. That would be like, well, I didn't see this fucking little gray, chunk on the ground here, and now I'm dead or something like that. But I think for the show's sake, I'm curious how much more they're going to use this kind of communication thing of it. If there's like smarter infected that use it to communicate, or it's just like a evolved adaptation they do, and they don't really consciously think about it. I don't think they really think much at all. But yeah, I really liked that addition.
I think as they put it in episode 2 and already did it, that's why I think they are going to do some more things with it. Because one's a change from the game, so it's like, okay, why did you put that in there? I imagine they must have been fucking pissed when they saw last season of Stranger Things, because Dylan, you haven't seen it, but the main villain, that's like what he uses is like he has a layer, and everywhere, like you touch it, he senses you, and you're gone and stuff. So it's like they must be like, fuck. But I think because the change from the game, and just because it's episode 2 and really early, I think they introduced that for a reason. Even if it's like a reverse to like how to like hurt a group of them or something like that, right? Like whether it's against our heroes or for our heroes, I think it will come back in some meaningful sort of way. Or maybe they like test, like if they're testing cure stuff, they test it on like if we test it on this and it kills a bunch, then we know that works and stuff, right? So that is a fun, interesting plot point. And again, yeah, it just provides more danger and stuff like that. So
I was thinking more on that virus, and I like that notion that you explained there, Dylan. The fact that, again, it latches onto ants at first, and it can spread to like other similar insects like dragonflies and that kind of stuff. Now, if it were to make that jump in this world like it has to humans, then theoretically it would also be able to take advantage of other closely related species to us. I'm imagining other mammals, those sorts of things. So in this world, this fungi would not stop at just humans. It would naturally just spread. So you'd have other animals that are infected with this thing. I don't know if the show would go that far, because that's probably pretty drastic from the game. I don't think the game has anything like that, but theoretically speaking, I think it would do that in real life.
I know you're fighting dogs in part 2. Are those infected dogs, Travis, or are those just regular old dogs?
No, they're just regular old dogs that I
Okay.
assume. So yeah, it's always like the just getting away, release the hounds, and exact replica of them. But yeah, I think they're all good dogs.
In
I
in
feel
the
like it's
game. Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
feel like for the show, at least, it's like we don't have a budget for that to like make all these CGI animals.
They
that
don't
are
have
infected,
Disney
so
money.
it's-
Like
Me too.
Disney's
Yeah.
paying to keep Pedro's helmet on. They can't put the gas mask on him in here.
Yeah, that would have been so funny if majority of the show he had a mask on, like Mandalorian. They're gonna cast him in MCU. He's gonna be Doom. Like everything, he's just like, can you just see my face? Like I just want to,
In the games, do the clickers' life expectancy stand true with what they said in the show, being a couple months, and then some have lived for like 20 years?
I think so, yeah, because I think there's some more grimier ones. I think that's what implied in the game when you meet some more like this. The ones we met in this one was just like the head. I guess with the face roll, you could still see ears in the back of their head. There's one that's like you got some full body infection going on, and that's where it's not a well living situation. So yeah, I think that you'll see that in my brain gets mixed when you see them, but especially in part 2, there's one base when I spent many hours in trying to get the fuck out of there, and it was like a very terrible situation. So I know HBO has the budget, but it's they're gonna have to spend some good monies and stuff like that. So
To talk about that scene, I guess we'll get into it now. I mean, overall, I think it's great. I feel like at times when a clicker was in the background, it almost seemed like CGI in some of its movements.
it was
So
strange.
I don't know if they're doing like a hybrid thing there, because obviously they
think so.
went full makeup and whatnot for some of the scenes, or
Oh,
they're
yeah.
just really good at fooling me. I'm not sure, but once again, the fact that it's a dark room helps that they can maybe hide some of that stuff. And I'm not saying that when the CGI elements, I don't think it necessarily looked bad. It just like it stood out to me. I'm like, I don't. If that is a person, they're damn good at doing zombie performances. They're so good at those movements. What were you going to say, Travis?
I was gonna say we'll take an ad break, and then we'll get to my point. So we'll take a second ad break. And we're back. Yeah, because the guy who did the makeup, S Bubs, if he's there, he'll like hit me with the name right away. But he's the guy that did like Green Knight. He did like Game of Thrones and stuff like that. So like, and you can tell like to me if you look at Green Knight and you look at this, like oh, it looks very similar to that type of
Yeah.
very edgy. Like so that's what I like. But it did take me out of it. It was that shot when Pedro was loading his gun again, and it was over shoulder and it was moving. And to me, it was just like the coloring was not so off that it hurt me, but it took me. I'm like, okay, that's a CG thing. Then I was starting to question the whole time, like, have they been CGI this whole time? And it's just really, really good. And this was a bad shot. I think
Barry
it's just,
Gower?
what? Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
What's his first name?
Barry?
And then last name?
Gower?
Barry Gower. Okay. Just,
Barry
I
Gower.
I thought it
wasn't
was
sure
like
that
one
his
word.
first-
Just
Yeah,
Barry Gower.
yeah. He's like
You never heard
Cher.
of him?
Barry Gower. Nice to meet you. But so yeah, I don't mind that they need a mix. I just found it was a weird time to do like. I wonder if there's just something wrong with that shot, or I wonder if they shot that with Pedro just there against a wall and there was like no stand. Like I don't know why that was CGI. You could have just had an extra in the background moving around and have like some light on them. So it was a strange choice, but I like them, of course, when they're more physical and stuff like that, or practical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, really, my only criticism of this scene is the same as I had in the first episode, which is just way too much shaky cam for my liking. God, I hate shaky cam. I know it has its uses, but man, I really didn't like it here. It quite bothered me. And the rest of the scene I thought was fantastic, but there's the kind of the height of the battles when they're obviously trying to make it the most chaotic, and I don't know. I just don't like the lack of clarity there. But other than that, I mean, sneaking around, having to be quiet and I mean, sorry, silent but not quiet.
Yeah, of course.
I really liked all of that. The threat was there, and yeah, I mean, even just the amount of bullets they had to put into those things to take them down was something that I think it was good to establish that here before we see more in the series, that like you really got to get a good shot on this thing, or make sure you have like a full clip good to go, because they will just eat shots all day long.
Oh yeah, the bullets did not, and I like that much like the game. You gotta get some precise headshots, or you're just like all those like God. I found there's so many times in the game you'd go days without bullets, and you find like fuck, I'm set, and they bump into a clicker, gone, and you're just back to square one with like a wooden bat. You're like, well, I guess this is what I got for my trek. So.
Like the whole overall museum sequence, I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was such a great like slow burn with them like entering it, because they see like the route or whatever it is outside, and then as you get further in, it just gets more and more fucked up. Like they see that one corpse, and then you just have like just the bodies that are like encased in the fungal growth, whatever it is. It's just like really unsettling and creepy. And like I remember even just the first time I encountered a clicker in like playing the game, it was just like, what the fuck is that? Like it's just like you don't really see all the details right away. And I thought for like the TV show, they did such a great job with it, where you see the silhouette. Like if like, you know, I was watching with Shay, of course, and like she has never experienced any of these moments in the game or anything like that. So like if you are coming into the show, like you said, Travis, like a lot of people that haven't even played the video game, like just that first like scene of the clicker, like it's such a fucked up thing that I think they really like killed it on the execution of that overall. Just like the slow burn of them getting into that area, and then you have the video game block your path, so now you're just trapped in there, and then you have these weird things that are making weird noises and moving really weird. That's one comment Shay says, like, why is he dancing? You know, he just like has these really like twitchy movements. But yeah, it was creepy for sure.
Well, and yeah, even the build up to get fully reveal them, because like you have them, you hear them, of course, like the classic clicking. It's just like such a great little. Like, if you don't know what's coming earlier in the moment when they're like, "Oh, I don't hear anything," and Ellie's talking, and they're like, "Shut up!" Like because they're just trying to hear if they hear any sort of clicks, right? And they hear nothing, so they think it's fine. They keep going. Obviously, bad luck. But I like that you kind of see it. You see it behind glass. Like they take a long time, and then the second Ellie makes that noise, like it turns and they get shot. Like the flashlight is on. That's like the first full reveal, and then it goes into a chase. So it's like, okay, you only get to see it for a few seconds. Like very good, like, and the game's like that, but very good, like horror, like reveal. And again, no fucking loud, like fucking sound effect where it's like, oh, you gotta be scared now. Like it was just like Ellie like made like a gasp, and it just turned, and then it's like the noise of it. So I appreciate that. Where again, and I think that's what I was referring to the non-spoilers. I think this was smart to have in the second episode, because I feel like people that like the zombie genre, like a Walking Dead and stuff, like you have to have those moments where it's like, okay, your characters are pinned down somewhere and you could lose anybody. Plus, I think it's smart where obviously like it happens in the game, but for the show pacing, I think it's smart that you lose Tess in this episode, because it gives people the idea of, well, you could lose anybody now. Because I feel like if you're tuned this episode, same way there's so many people that I've talked to that did not know the daughter was going to die. So now I guarantee there's those same people did not think second episode we're going to lose Tess, his love interest. Like I'm sure they thought, oh, maybe down the line, but the adventures just started and we already lost our like co-lead with Pedro. You know, it's just like, and so I think all pacing wise it was great to have like a chase, intense, lose a character, all well done for the back half. So, anything to say on the clickers?
Yeah, they just absolutely scared the shit out of me. When
like Superbad Mike says, need a shiv for insta kill. Yeah, those shivs were worth a lot. Those were whatever that Monopoly money page was using. I didn't have enough of it to get them in the game.
Yeah, the way they introduced them was great. Just the moment they saw that dead body and just like the guy ripped apart, and I liked how Tess leveled with. It might have been after the fact, but leveled with Ellie and just like, you know, something along the lines of being immune to the cure, but not immune to being ripped to shreds or whatever, torn up by them. And I like that a lot, how she said that. And Ellie just being this kind of brat throughout this whole first part. And then finally you see her put in these instances at first where there's the dead skeleton and at the concierge desk. And she's like, whoa. And she's like freaked out. And then that escalates more when, okay, in this situation, it's really, really heavy. And when she's closing her eyes and is in that situation, I resonated with that, because I just think, man, like so many people would do that, and that you gasp when you open your eyes and see this thing literally 3 feet away from you. It was done really, really well. I like how they pulled that scene off. I will say though that the transitions between that CGI and the practical effects, it definitely stood out for me, and that's definitely a con, but I can get over it because, like you said, Dylan, the dark aesthetic that they used really, really helped that, so there wasn't much inhibiting it. I just think that just having the two of them was perfect, and just having that long segue of just the click 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 and them just kind of like moving backwards out of the way of these things was great. And then you hear another one off to the side, which is great too. It's just super freaky, and I hate when cameras do this, because you know, like they're just gonna fuck with you, the fucking cameras. But Joel, he's like reloading his gun and the camera's slowly panning away, and it's like, don't pan off the fucking thing, I need to see it, because now obviously
the way you say it is like it was a faulty camera, like the lens broke or something like that, and that's why they're like, well, it's only shot we got to roll with it.
Well, I'm glad they didn't go with the jump scare. They
You're laughing at the comment, aren't you?
I'm not. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad they didn't go with the jump scare though. They just rode off of
not.
that tensity of him reloading his revolver, and then you just hear the clicking right around the corner. And I thought when Joel like flipped around the corner, they were gonna go with the jump scare, but no, he flips around and shines the light, and it's right there, which is freaky. And then obviously it hears a thump, and it goes off to the other room. And again, even when he crunches on the glass when he's moving with Ellie, that all felt very video gamey like. Just the way they're making like noise and stuff going around this box, and yeah, it hits the glass and the thing goes full like over.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I can't remember if this happens in the game because I know like this part is mixed with like game action cutscenes. I like even if it's not the idea of when they're running, and because for a second I kind of forgot, but so Joel's running, he runs through the doors and all this stuff and everything like that, and then like he runs past that like statue of I don't know what like famous figure it was, but he just like throws it down. And I had a scary movie moment where I'm like, why is that gonna stop? That like it's not blocking any door, but it was like break the glass to like make a sound, and I really appreciated that in the moment. But when he was pushing, like, what's this gonna do? It's not like it's just like this head of a statue, like the size of mine, and everything like that. But yeah, no, it was all well done that scene. And then I think we all had problems with the CGI. It sounds like so.
Did you guys have the same thought as me when they're first in the room and like the cave-in happens and the clicker, they're starting to hear it, and they're all like pointing their flashlights around. They're like walking backwards, and Ellie looks like she's gonna walk directly into that pedestal with the statue on. It might not be the exact same one, but a different one. Because I'm like, oh, I've seen this movie before where knocks that over, that smashes, that makes the sound, then they all come after them. So I like that they didn't do that, and instead they built that anticipation some more and did something a bit different too than just the classic statue or vase getting knocked over, whatever it is. Because as Taylor said, I like that moment. Closes her eyes, opens them, and like, oh fuck, this is real.
They go full Peregrine Took, just knocks over the helmet.
Yeah.
Awakens the entire.
Exactly that moment.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say for like a thing that's choreographed or like not choreographed. What were you? Oh, what's the word when you? Is it choreographed? Yeah, I guess choreographed. I don't know. Either way, I want to ask you guys. They get out of there. Obviously, they kill a bunch of clickers. They meet back up with Tess. Rolled ankle. You're getting multiple shots.
I don't know if I said bunch. He's killed like 2.
Okay, you got 2. You know, what's someone look up what a bunch is? Because I know that's a couple is 2, but I gotta know what a bunch is for the future, so I don't mess it up again.
I just don't want to give them too much credit. Like they only killed 2 and they lost 1. Those are not good numbers.
But you're getting lots of shot from the game, like that one when she's like, oh, it's like a fucked up place, but what a view. Like that's from the game. When she walks the board, like it's like the exact game. But so obviously, meet Tess. She's a rolled ankle. It's hurting lots, everything like that. Did any of you think at that point she was a bunch is more than 4? Okay, there you go. Good to know. So it was not a bunch. It was a couple. But what were you guys thinking of the state of Tess was? Because Emily looked over at me and said, oh, she's gone.
That's exactly what Shay said. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought she just rolled her ankle. I knew Tess wasn't going to make it the entire show for obvious reasons.
She's not on the cover art.
Yeah, exactly. So I think to have her, kill off this far is healthy, episode 2, so that we can get just the 2 of them moving forward until they meet some other characters. But yeah, it did not cross my mind at all until Shay was like, she's obviously bitten right now. And I was just like, oh yeah, I guess maybe, but I feel like maybe they would have shown that. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, that was a surprise to me.
That's funny. I did not have. I mean, my
Women's
knowledge
intuition
of the story is definitely spotty. But in my head, in my mind, I thought Tess because I know she's not she's not on the cover of the box, so she's obviously not in the whole thing. I thought she abandoned the crew in some way, maybe selling out Ellie or something, and then I thought she comes back and is a traitor or something. That was my going into this what I thought was going to happen. So obviously I'm glad that my expectations are being challenged, even though obviously I just have not played the game from start to finish myself. So no, I did not. I'm a filthy casual. I did not pick up on it. I have a small brain. What can I say?
Not alone. Little brain gang.
Yeah.
For me, I with the twisted ankle, I didn't trust it because I thought maybe something under the sock or maybe it's a scratch or something. I wasn't sure. What I did think was when she sat on the windowsill and Joel went up to go see Ellie and she sat there, I thought, that's bold to have your back facing this fucking doorway. I thought something was going to just dive out and pull her in and they'd be on the other side and she'd kick with her foot.
Episode.
Well, I thought she'd kick with her foot the wooden plank and they'd be spaced over separated from building to building. So I thought maybe something was going to happen there, but Yeah, she bit.
She bit. She gone. And then so they make their way to where the meeting point where they're supposed to drop Elio off, and it's pandemonium. Well, it's quiet, but it was pandemonium as they just go there. Just bloody people, gunshots, stuff like that. That's a good build up. Troll just finds a guy with a fucking like air can tank, just like crush this guy's skull and stuff like that. So it's not looking good. I'd have laughed if they just would have been like, yeah, go in there, it's all good, and then like left her. But obviously they don't. That's part of it. And they get in there, it's all dead. They figure out what's going on, and then Tess, like as we just talked about, reveals what happened to her, that she's bit. And I like this because they pepper this in the beginning of the episode as far as Joel's many times, like the idea of a cure or like a future, he's definitely written that off. He's just trying to survive the best he can. He's like, he gave that example of, I've heard people talk about this and this and this, and it's always bullshit. So I like that she kind of alluded almost like they were politically like on a different side. She's like, oh, I know like you and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but like you have to do this. And I've always liked that where the beginning of the game in this, it feels like it's he's doing this in honor of Tess, but not because he wants to, because it's like, okay, well, it's kind of a friend's last wish, so I'm going to do that. But I like the speech. I like the scene. I like the game version a little bit better because I feel like Joel's like a little more emotional. I think they had Pedro be a little bit more cold at that moment, and but it still worked. It's just like a variation. The big change up though is because like I talked about the hive mind thing in the game, it's just Fedra, and they have some like they're like the I don't know, they're like something diseased, like they just take care of people and stuff like that. So they find out the situation. Oh, she is not cursed. she's
Cursed.
bit.
Yeah, I would say she's cursed.
I guess
I'll
she's
put that
cursed.
in there.
Yeah. So like
She's
that
got the witch's mark.
in the game, it's a bunch of like government agents that come and take her up. But in
That's
this
what
one,
I thought. See, it's
yeah.
funny that like I totally forgot what happens to Tess, but I remembered those mercs. And like even when they're in that building, I'm like, I swear there's like a shootout that happens in this room in the game or something.
Yeah,
like
it was. And then Joel and Ellie leave her and stuff. And that's very same dialogue. And that's stuff where I like because she's a kid, because even in the game, she's like, why did we just leave her? But it's like, what were you going to do? But again, she's supposed to be like a young kid, right? So they can kind of ask those questions and stuff. And so, yeah, I liked it. The only reason I was going to say why I did really, really like this is I will have to share something because we got this just fucking nightmare fuel scene of she's trying to light some gas and stuff like that. And then
Fuck, man.
You're not pulling it up again, are you?
Oh, yeah. I'm
This
pulling
is one of
up.
my biggest issues with this episode.
Awful. And that's where it's just like the change of the like that nightmare fuel, just fucking terrible, you know. So
like,
but yeah.
that's where like instantly I'm like, why the fuck did she wait so long to French this guy for lighting this thing? And then Shay was like, she's struggling with the lighter. I'm like, she just fucking toss grenades around on the floor.
Emily
like
said
just
the
grab
same
one
thing
and
with the
pull the
grenades.
pin.
She should
Like,
hold
my
the thing
God.
down and just get the spark enough would be enough. Like,
She's like, oh yeah, no, that was too much for me.
Yeah, I was like, I guess her mind is already converted or something. Like it was very weird for me as well. I feel like that scene went on longer than it needed to, and I also feel like, didn't she have a gun? Like, why don't you just shoot a grenade or shoot the ground or something? Like, I feel like that would do it. But
I think they
yeah,
purely
I
wanted,
didn't
like,
love the execution of that moment.
And like, why? What's the infected dude's like reasoning for that? Like,
I think they're just
licking it?
connecting. Like they're like it's like
One of
oh, no, I just mean like I think you can
Do you want to
sense
join
like,
the chiral network, just like Death Stranding style?
it's like fungi like growing together. I think that's what it's kind of doing. It's like evolving. It's like meshing together and stuff like that. I think it's literally they just had an idea of like a gross out shot, and I think you can argue the merits of does it need to happen story wise. But I think if you're trying to hit like a horror thing, and that's something that I think people will you'll have that same reaction, right? Of like that'll stick in your mind as like a last 2-minute thing. That's like oh that was
it's
really
sticking. All right.
that really fun. Like you'll always remember how Tess went out, you know. So that's one thing. Maybe he felt, hey, this was a bit too boring in the game, and I want to do something. So I don't know the merit of it because yeah, she could have done so much stuff, but I liked the visual as far as like it's fucking creepy, and they're like tongue things are don't want
the
part of that.
CGI on the tendril things. It looks phenomenal. Like the scene that you shouted out earlier, Travis, when it's like it's grabbing like the fingers on the hand on the ground. Like all of that stuff looks so good, and yeah, to get a little bit more like, is that a thing from the games where they have this like little tendril thing coming out of their mouth?
I don't don't think so, really. No, I
Yeah.
feel like they're just kind of messed up. Like they have like the fungi growing off them, but they.
That's
I
probably
think
too
they,
small of a detail to like see in the game.
Yeah, true. You don't get any scenes like you're like tests where you're making out with them and stuff like that.
Like
but
take a sniper and like zoom in on their face from like a foot away or something.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
like I think there's that sometimes growing off bodies and stuff like that. But I feel even lots of them, like there was that one guy that woke up and he had like pretty much just half a head of mushrooms. I feel like they're really hitting home on the fungi, and that happens in the games. But I feel like they're really hitting that aspect a lot more in the show of it's like the growing of it, and that has to do with probably because we're getting those flashbacks, right? In the game, it's an unknown disease. They're fucking like zombies, pretty much. Where this is like you had John from The Mummy explaining like, oh, it grows this, and I like that. It's good for a show, and you got to be very visual. Like Dylan said, where in a game you can have that in cutscene, but if you're running around, you're not seeing those mouth tendrils popping off, you know. So
And that's something that differentiates these zombies from or these infected from other classic zombies, right? Because in that first episode, when you see like the grandma, Miss Perkins, whatever the hell her name was, with like we thought it was fur or something, like this weird hair like coming out of her mouth. It was like because I don't know, it was a dark room. You don't fully get the details. Whereas this one, the lady's doing a full on autopsy, so obviously we get a closer look on it. But yeah, just a very, I don't know, unique thing to have on a creepy threat. And yeah, it's left an imprint on me. I feel like I'm always gonna remember these.
well, and it's tough, and that's what I always wondered about. Like all these years when people talk about like a movie or show for last stuff, it's just like vampires and zombies. I feel like it's just so hard to do now. Like how many versions of these things have you seen in media? It's like how do you make it to set apart? I think they're doing a good job, and I think that's why they're emphasizing a lot more on like the tendril fungi stuff, because people will like, oh, this is different. Because even like at the beginning of the last episode when we had the fast moving ones, like, well, now we got to the point where we start seeing fast moving zombies, right? For like 30 years it's like it's slow, and then so many fast, like, oh shit, this is new. Like I Am Legend, so it's like you can't do that. So I think they're smart with all the changes, and it's obviously it's a hit show, but I think it's always difficult of like, how do you make this unique? And I think they're doing a good job of it,
And like the unity idea of it too, like them having this hive mind. That's something again that separates from other zombies that at least I'm used to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things is this different representation. While yes, we've done the whole walking slow zombies and the fast running zombies, I like the different types of origin stories, I guess you could say, that goes into this. So we've had, I think I mentioned this in the first review episode, the slow walking undead reanimated corpses. We've had the rabies virus, and now we have the fungal variant.
French
here.
kissers.
The French kissers, yeah.
Yeah, it almost seems like, to me, I'm getting the vibe that it is. I guess they made that comment that some of them only survive a month, others like 20 years, and I wonder what that's about in terms of like, okay, if it's just like didn't feed for a month, is that why it died, or is it because like they were infected by a different, I don't know what word to use, but just like a different contamination of these fungal things that were like stronger than others? Because to me, it kind of seems like they all are maybe always progressing towards like a clicker state or something like that. Like that's what they're moving towards, and we're just seeing them at different points in that evolution rather than seeing like types that have evolved differently, if that makes sense.
Well, you have like the plants too that were obviously dead in this episode, and so like what's like if they're connected underground through their roots and their network, like what caused this little portion to die at the museum, for example? Because when Joel's like squishing it, it's all like dried out.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting element of it. I really like. I'm really enjoying the world building. I think there's a couple moments where it's like felt a little on the nose exposition-y wise, but like for the most part, I think they're doing a pretty good job of it, and they're layering it enough in there between the story beats. I'm curious how much more we're going to get of that, because I feel like so far Ellie doesn't really know anything. Joel doesn't want to talk about that, or if he does, he just like answers a question like kind of quickly. But and Tess was kind of the more exposition machine in this episode, if you will, for some of those like world building elements of it. So I mean, I guess as Joel and Ellie get closer, he'll be more open to sharing this information, and then we'll meet other characters who might have other conflicting or enhancing information. So I'm excited to see more of that world building stuff.
One of my cons that I have with this episode is when they got to their destination. Yes, there's all the dead people there, but holy fuck, the supplies and ammunition that was loaded was fucking through the roof. Like, she pours all the grenades out. Just take one and put it in your backpack. Like, there's guns on the ground. Grab this shit. Give
Even
Ellie a
Tessa's
gun.
backpack, they didn't give it to her. Like,
No.
take
Yeah,
this.
I was like, come on, that's some good inventory space in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get what I think they're trying. What they're trying to go for was these things are gonna burst through the door any second you gotta go. So I think that's what they're going for. But I think they almost could have made it a bit faster than at that point, because then it's like, okay, you really wouldn't have time to get anything because you're running. But they had enough time of back and forth of no, let's not leave her. So I can agree with that one.
We travel light. Tonight we hunt orc.
And I guess all I want to say, because in case, like, obviously there's probably tons of people listening that never played the game. Then this episode, they really hit home the Ellie is immune. We didn't mention she got bit or scratched in this episode by a thing, and that's what's the comparison, where that's where Tess really got through to Joel was, look, I just got bit at the same time she would have, and her neck is completely fucked, her veins are all growing. Really, it just still looks like a scratch, and that was the big hit home where, okay, because Joel kept saying, like, oh, well, she's immune, but for how long? She could turn at any point, and that was kind of his, like, okay, to believe it. So, yeah, they hit on that, and I don't think they'll hit on it too much more till later on. But I think, like, last week, the cliffhanger was you're immune, and then this week we got the explanation of, okay, they're getting her from point A to point B for the cure, and obviously there's going to be some road bumps along the way. But, yeah, they set that up a lot.
Is that different from the video game? Because I feel like I was halfway through, and I don't think I even got to that point where you like find out what Ellie is.
I remember in a trailer you were saying that. I was like, no, it's pretty early on. It is like, I'd say the first. I don't know if the game was divided into 4 or 3 parts. I think it's in the first for sure.
Okay.
I think it probably just feels longer because, like, you play through it, like the time isn't
Died a
comparable,
lot,
right?
so it's like,
Yeah,
fuck.
right?
Oh, when are we
Scrounging
gonna
for
get past
ammo.
this?
So yeah,
Climbing
that's
up ladders,
exactly. So no, I think actually this feels like pacing wise pretty similar to where it is now. So
Cool.
Yeah, right on.
That was all my notes.
I think let me take a look. I think I hit on.
Do you guys
Yeah,
watch the preview for next week?
No, I didn't
No.
actually.
No.
Crave doesn't get those. Yeah. So
What? I did.
Crave gets them.
did you watch it live or did you watch?
I
a
watched
replay
it
of
live,
I didn't watch it live because you can't pause it. So because it's bad timing every time Last of Us starts in the first 10 to 15 minutes. My kids are coming home from skiing, so and we gotta like pause it. Get them in a different room. They get to watch some Bluey for that time because they're not watching the Adventures of Joel and Ellie. Like, Ellie's watching with us because she doesn't know what's going on, and it's her namesake. But
Yeah, it's her namesake.
yeah. I learned that last week when I paused it, and it just like remained paused, and literally funny like Grandpa comes over like we're here right as Sarah's getting fucking shot up and everything like that. So and Emily, but at least Emily was like, yeah, I know what's gonna happen. She's not sticking around. But then so on Crave when you pause it, then you hit play, it just jumps to it live. So like luckily when we jump forward, there's no spoilers or anything. But yeah, you can't pause it live, Crave. So I just wait a couple minutes till it pops up on the VOD. Like I think it goes live at 6, and then like at 6:02 or something, it goes on the. So that's where we watch, just so we can pause at any point with kids and everything. So
I've gotten screwed so many times with that, with like House of the Dragon, where I like tune in maybe 10 minutes later, and it'll be like 10 minutes in, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to see this yet. I don't know. There's just ass on screen or something. It's like, how did we get here?
how do we get here?
Got to build up to the ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I got no other notes. Like so, then I was just surprised Neil Druckmann did episode 2. I thought it'd be a lot later till we got him.
Did
but
he only direct one or something?
I don't know if he did. I'll have to look. I don't even know if they've said it. They just said that he directed. So, or at least I know. Or at least that's what I had heard.
At least I know that.
Yeah. No spoilers. No, but I maybe because they've done so many interviews, in some interview maybe he dropped a number, but it's cool for him. Obviously, like his first venture into like live action stuff, and obviously it's kind of like a little cheat because like he's directing things he's done, and else. But hopefully other people see this and like look at people like Michael Giacchino. He scores all these movies for years, and now he directed Werewolf by Night. He's directing a monster movie in a couple of years, like a full thing. I think it's for Universal. So you never know what could happen. So. Yeah, imagine that. They're going to F me over and be like, they're not going to do a Last of Us Part 3 game. They're just going to make it the show. It's going to be like Game of Thrones where I'll have no idea what's going on and I'll feel like
There's rumors that they're doing part 3, so we'll see.
I think that I hate to say it. I honestly think they're doing it so they can make more seasons of this show. I really think that's it. Because like Neil was, when that game ended, he sounded so certain, like, oh, maybe some point, like in the far future, but right now I couldn't see myself return that world at any point with these characters. And then it's like a couple
Blank
years.
check.
Yeah, HBO's like, hey, because I don't know, when did Last of Us came out? What, 2019, right? I think.
Part
Part 2?
Does that sound right? Yeah, part 2. That sounds about right. Yeah, so 4 years. So, and I guess I'm not giving enough credit. After 4 years, he could have had an idea of like, fuck, well, I can do stuff with this world. And you never know. It could be like the multiplayer game, right? Where the multiplayer game is going to be different characters, a different world. And I don't think it's going to have much story. But yeah, I have that's part of my feeling that it might just be for the show. You okay over there, Taylor?
His vibrator
Yeah, why?
started turn it on.
Yeah, doing some manscaping while during the show.
Well, Travis, just since we're
2020.
talking
There you go.
Neil,
Thank you.
Neil
Druckmann.
what?
Druckmann.
Like how you're talking about earlier with like a possible DLC sequence of a story with like the Jakarta sequence. Like maybe that's just something fun with him too. Like with the possibility of doing more seasons, like he can kind of tell different parts of the story that maybe he had to cut out to just fit into the video game. So I don't know, maybe it's just more positive outcomes that have crossed his mind that makes it make sense for.
Well, yeah,
for
once
HBO
you tell
time.
that story for the first time, and even with all these scenes, maybe he had an idea later, like, oh, I would have liked, like you said, to put that in the game, but obviously the game's been out for like 10 years now, the original game. And I guess you could do like, oh, a remaster where we've added new scenes, but like I feel like most people find that's kind of like a little cheesy.
Did they
like
just do the remaster
They
too.
did.
It's like
they did a remaster, yeah, but
Part
a,
one or whatever
a remake, I guess you could do where it's like we're adding these scenes from the show now, but no, I think it's just that. And again,
It'll be interesting to see what the situation is. I feel like they're really happy with their casting and stuff like that. Like I would assume the games would go ahead with Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson as the voices of those characters in the games, but I don't know, would they bring these two over to do the voice acting there? That would be an interesting thing to see now that both worlds exist, kind of thing.
They bring them as different characters, like how Ashley and Troy are
Yeah.
going to different characters. No, I think they'd keep those voice actors and stuff like that.
That's just interesting to like from the writing perspective. If they're writing now the third game with the anticipation that this will be a season as well, like thinking about how like that, I just the way
Who do you have
the
in mind when
third
you're
game will
writing
be
it?
set up, I feel like
Yeah.
could be very different if they're really thinking about it in unison of like how can we film this live action at like in a one, because so far this has been very close to what the game is, right? In terms of just sets, and even as we talked about in the first episode, like the camera on the backseat of the car, right? So I wonder how much that'll be very interesting to see if 7 years from now when the third game comes out.
Well, and it's like the whole way. It's like, okay, if I am Jon Favreau and I'm directing Iron Man 2, I know I'm writing Iron Man with Robert Downey playing him. But now Neil, when he's writing this game, he has like the two versions of Joel, right? Like, does he write it the way? I'm sure he just writes it how he feels. But like now, when he has it in mind, like how would character A act? How would character B act? It's like, is he thinking about Pedro when he writes that, or is he thinking about Troy and the video game character and stuff like that? Or he has two separate versions. He has like a wall. Like we're getting
to the multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. It obviously hasn't been announced, but I could see that being a stinger. I guess probably not when this. Probably not. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say. I guess they announced Last of Us 2 at like a E3 and stuff like that. I was just wondering if they would like do their own thing, like piggyback off the success of this game. But I guess they'll probably promote that multiplayer game first, and then.
Well, that I mean, and like the word was that they made the Part 1 remake in part because they just Naughty Dog had like nothing else to do. Like they just didn't like have
It's
the next
weird.
game they wanted to work
Yeah.
on. So, like I don't think since 2020 they obviously didn't do any proper DLC for Part 2. It's not like they've just been cooking away on that thing for 3 years. Well, they could be, but that's not what the reports and stuff say.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just to talk about the games, it just jogged a memory I had in my head. I can't remember if I ever told you guys this. I remember I was in EB Games when Last of Us 1 came out, and this is before digital copies were really a thing and all that. So
Yeah, I heard this story.
you heard this story? Yeah, this guy wanted to buy Last of Us, and the clerk's like, sorry, we're all sold out. I'm like, I'm in the Xbox section, so I had no issues. But this guy, yeah, he was upset. So thank fuck for digital
What did you
copies.
buy that day?
Oh, I don't know.
Rome,
just-
Son of Rise, or whatever.
I was probably I was just out like immersing myself.
What was
Just immersing yourself.
Oh god, what is that series of you're stuck in the mall and there's zombies?
Dead Rising.
Yeah, he bought the new Dead Rising that launched with
Nice.
Xbox One. Remember that Dead Rising 3 when it's like he wasn't the main character. When are they bringing that back? I want to be back in that mall. I never beat that game as a kid either, so I'd like to go back as like
It was a
Prime
time
Day
game
Travis.
too, right?
It was hard. Yeah.
Was it
fighting against the
time?
clock.
Looking
I
at
think
you look at your watch all the time, right?
Well, it
Had,
was.
like,
I thought you
24
had like.
hours.
Yeah, you had a limited amount of
Didn't
time
they
to
do
get out
away
of
with
the
that in the
mall.
later games though?
I
They
think
did,
so.
so-
Yeah, but the mall was fun, man. That was a great. I had a fun. I hated. Everyone remember the bike boss, where it was a guy on a bike and he would just go around like hit you and stuff like that. It was
Oh.
awful.
I-
But that
my-
was kind of Elden Ring, like wasn't it? Where you bump into random bosses or character. It wasn't like like.
I don't know if I'd compare to Elden Ring.
No, I mean, like I feel like there's random bosses that would just pop up when like you might not be ready for. Maybe I'm wrong. I
There
could
would
be
be.
wrong.
There'd be areas of the mall that just have like a giant clown zombie or something. And
Yeah.
it's just like you could
I'm not supposed to be
bypass him. Yeah.
The thing I remember is you go into like the bathroom store and get like a shower head and like stick it in the head of a zombie and it would just like shoot blood out. So good. I gotta play that game, man.
Well, yeah,
Oh my
we
gosh.
should get a card for the next stream. That'd be a good like. That'd be a
I think
good
I got
like.
it on
like-
Xbox 360. Whatever.
Okay.
It's not the first one, but it might be. Maybe I don't. I guess it wouldn't be the third. One
That'd
of
be good,
them.
like a good wee hour game to play. Like all of us taking turns and stuff like that. Like someone, yeah, we should look into that. I gotta start making a master list of it because we always do this. Like, oh, we should do this, and then it comes November, like, fuck, what should we play? And at last point, yeah, S-Bob's a good point because they did this with Ring of the Power. They do books
Yeah.
releases with Pedro and Bella on the cover or Ellie on the. You see, it's Ellie. He
Ellie.
screwed me up. He
Belly,
screwed me
Bella.
up. And the sticker says now an HBO series. That's how I said when I got the novels for Fellowship and Two Towers, and it was the audio books, and now they have the Rings of Power cover. It's like, like not as cool. Like I had to use 2 credits, so it's fine. But it's like I don't want that, and I love Rings of Power, but like I'd like the original ones. But it's fine, So
Yeah, my
Dude,
Witcher
it's-
my Witcher books have like a big Netflix tag on them.
It's not even him anymore, too. Well, there we go. We spent 10 minutes just bullshitting around, so good times
fun.
and all. So yeah, we'll be back next week talking about Last of Us episode 3. I guess I should have looked at the title. I know this one was called Infected, so I'll look for that next week. But yeah, thank you to everyone that tuned in live chat. Thank you to everyone tunes in after. Everyone have a good week, and we promise you it'll not be boring.